1. Could bread be older than civilization? Today, bread is one of the most common foods in the world. People eat it for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It looks simple. Bread is usually made from flour, water, and heat. But behind this simple food is a very long and surprising story. Have you ever thought that bread might be older than civilization itself? Many people believe that humans first started farming and then they made bread. But new discoveries tell a different story. Some archaeologists believe that early humans may have made simple bread before they started farming. In other words, the love for bread may have inspired people to grow grains and build farms. If this idea is true, bread did not follow civilization. Bread helped create it. 2. Ancient crumbs. The earliest bread. Long before cities, farms, or ovens existed, early humans lived as hunters and gatherers. They moved from place to find food. They hunted animals and collected wild plants, seeds, and roots. Life was simple, but it was also very hard. Even in those early times, people discovered something important. They learned that seeds from wild plants could be crushed into powder using simple stones. They ground these seeds and roots into a rough kind of flour. This flour was not soft like the flour we use today. It was coarse and full of small pieces. Archaeologists believe this happened as early as 30,000 years ago. Early humans mixed this rough flour with water. Then they placed the mixture on hot stones near the fire. After a short time, it became a flat and dry piece of food. It was not soft bread like we know today, but it was one of the earliest forms of bread. This simple food was very useful. It was easy to carry during long journeys. It also gave people energy during long days of hunting and traveling. One of the most important discoveries about early bread comes from a group of ancient people called the Natufians. They lived in the area that is now Jordan and parts of the Middle East. About 14,400 years ago, the Natufian people made flat bread from wild wheat and barley. They baked this bread on hot stones over open fires. These small pieces of bread were simple, but they were an important step in human history. 3. The Fertile Crescent. Seeds that changed society. Around 10,000 years ago, something very important began to change. Humans slowly started to grow their own plants. They began to plant and harvest grains such as wheat and barley. This was the beginning of farming. Many scientists believe bread played an important role in this change. People wanted a stable supply of grain to make their food, so they started to grow these plants instead of only collecting them in the wild. This change happened in a region called the Fertile Crescent. This area includes parts of the modern Middle East. The land there was rich and good for growing crops. Over time, people built large villages and early towns in this region. Places like Chorleywood and Jarmo became important early communities. In these communities, bread was more than just food. Bread meant safety and stability. If people had grain, they could make bread. If they could make bread, they could stay in one place and build a community. Bread helped people plan for the future. It helped families live together in larger groups. In this way, a simple food helped shape the first human societies. 4. The Egyptian miracle. The birth of leavened bread. Around 4000 BC, An important discovery changed the history of bread forever. This discovery may have happened by accident. One day, someone may have left a bowl of dough outside in the warm sun. After some time, the dough began to change. It slowly became larger and softer. Tiny bubbles appeared inside the dough. This happened because natural yeast from the air entered the mixture. The yeast began to feed on the sugars in the flour. As it worked, it produced gas. This gas made the dough rise. When the dough was baked, the bread became light and soft. It was very different from the flat and hard bread people had eaten before. Many historians believe this discovery first happened in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians quickly learned how to control this natural process. They began to save a small piece of old dough. They added it to new dough to help it rise again. This was one of the earliest forms of sourdough bread. Soon, bread became a very important part of Egyptian life. Egyptian bakers built special clay ovens to bake bread. These ovens could hold heat for a long time. This allowed bakers to make many loaves each day. Over time, Egyptian bakers created many different shapes and types of bread. Some bread was round, some bread was long and thin, some bread was sweet and mixed with honey or dates. Bread was not only food in ancient Egypt, it was also a form of payment. Workers who built temples and pyramids often received bread as part of their wages. Bread was strong, filling, and easy to share. For many people, bread and beer were the most common daily foods. Because of this, bread became a symbol of life and stability in Egyptian society. The discovery of yeast changed bread forever. It also helped make bread softer, tastier, and more popular. 5. Bread in circuses. Bread as power in Rome. As time passed, the art of bread making continued to grow. In ancient Greece, baking became a respected skill. Greek bakers experimented with many recipes and techniques. They used different grains, oils, and flavors. Some historians believe the Greeks created more than 70 types of bread. Bakeries began to appear in Greek cities. Bakers became skilled professionals who were proud of their craft. When the Roman Empire grew, it learned many things from Greek culture. Bread making was one of them. But in Rome, bread became more than food or art. It became a tool of power and politics. Rome was a huge city with a very large population. Many people depended on the government for food. To keep the population calm and satisfied, Roman leaders created a famous policy. It was called panem et circenses. This Latin phrase means bread in circuses. The idea was simple. The government would provide free grain or bread to the people. At the same time, they would organize large public shows and games. These events included chariot races, plays, and gladiator fights. When people had food and entertainment, they were less likely to complain about politics. Bread, in this way, helped maintain peace in the empire. Rome also built large systems to store and transport grain. Ships carried grain across the Mediterranean Sea from Egypt and North Africa. Huge warehouses stored grain for the city. These supplies were very important for the survival of Rome. However, this system also made the empire vulnerable. When enemies attacked or captured important grain routes, food supplies became dangerous. Without grain, bread production slowed down. When bread became scarce, people became angry and afraid. Some historians believe that problems with grain supply helped weaken the Roman Empire. In this way, bread was not only food, it was connected to power, stability, and even the fall of great civilizations. 6. Bread in the Middle Ages, a sign of social class. During the Middle Ages in Europe, bread was more than just food. The kind of bread you ate often showed your place in society. Bread became a clear sign of wealth and social class. Rich people usually ate white bread made from fine wheat flour. This flour was carefully ground and cleaned. It removed the darker parts of the grain. The result was soft and light bread. White bread looked clean and beautiful. Because of this, people believed it was pure and high quality. Poor people did not have access to this fine flour. Most farmers and workers ate dark bread. This bread was made from grains such as barley, rye, or oats. The flour was rough and not fully cleaned. The bread was heavy, dense, and sometimes hard. It also had a darker color and a stronger taste. Even though dark bread was less valued by the rich, it was still important food. It gave energy to people who worked long hours in the fields. For many families, bread was the main food they ate every day. In many towns and villages, people did not bake bread at home. Instead, they used large community ovens. These ovens were shared by many families. People prepared their dough at home and brought it to the oven to bake. Community ovens became an important part of daily life. Neighbors often met there and talked while waiting for their bread. The smell of fresh bread filled the streets of medieval towns. During this time, groups of professional bakers also began to appear. These groups were called guilds. A guild was an organization that protected the interests of skilled workers. Baker guilds controlled many parts of the baking trade. They helped decide how bread should be made. They also controlled the quality of bread. Bakers who broke the rules could be punished or lose their jobs. Guilds also helped control bread prices. This was important because bread was a basic food for everyone. If bread became too expensive, people could become angry or desperate. For this reason, governments and guilds often worked together. They tried to make sure bread remained available for the population. 7. The Renaissance and a world of new bread. During the Renaissance, many parts of life in Europe began to change. Art, science, and trade grew quickly. At the same time, bread making also improved. New milling technologies helped produce finer flour. Mills became more efficient and powerful. They could grind grain more smoothly than before. Because of this, white flour became more available. White bread continued to be a symbol of wealth and status. Many rich families preferred this kind of bread. They believed it was cleaner and better for the body. However, another important change was happening in the wider world. European explorers began traveling across the oceans. They discovered new lands and new cultures. One of the most important discoveries was the Americas. This contact created a huge exchange of plants and foods between continents. Historians often call this the Columbian Exchange. New crops traveled across the oceans. One of these crops was corn, also called maize. Corn quickly became an important food in many regions. People began using corn to create new kinds of bread. In the Americas, many cultures already made flat breads from corn. One famous example is the tortilla. Tortillas were thin, round breads made from corn dough. Corn also became popular in parts of Europe. In some places, people created cornbread using ground corn flour. This bread had a different taste and texture from wheat bread. The exchange of ingredients and ideas changed the world of bread. Different cultures shared their knowledge and traditions. As a result, bread became more diverse than ever before. By the end of the Renaissance, bread was no longer just a local food. It had become part of a global story shaped by travel, trade, and cultural exchange. 8. The Industrial Revolution. From handmade bread to factory bread. In the 19th century, the world began to change very quickly. This period is known as the Industrial Revolution. New machines and new technology changed many parts of daily life. Bread making was one of the industries that changed the most. Before this time, most bread was made by hand. Bakers mixed the dough, waited for it to rise, and baked it slowly. This process often took many hours, but new machines soon appeared in the milling industry. Steam-powered mills could grind grain much faster than before. They also produced finer and more consistent flour. Another important change was the introduction of commercial yeast. Before this, bakers usually used natural sourdough starters. These starters took time and patience to work. Commercial yeast made the process faster and easier. Bakers could now produce bread in a shorter time. The dough rose quickly and more predictably. As cities grew larger, the demand for bread increased. Millions of people moved to cities to work in factories. These workers needed cheap and reliable food. Industrial bakeries helped solve this problem. They could produce large amounts of bread every day. Bread became cheaper and easier to buy. Factory bread was also softer and more uniform. Every loaf looked almost the same. This made bread easier to sell in large markets. However, this change also had a cost. Traditional bread often used slow fermentation. This slow process created deep flavor and strong aroma. Industrial bread was faster to make, but sometimes less flavorful. Many people began to miss the taste of older breads. Still, industrial bread helped feed growing populations. It became one of the most important foods for city life. 9. The sliced bread revolution. In the early 20th century, another innovation changed bread forever. This time, the change was about convenience. In 1928, an American inventor named Otto Frederick Roeder created a new machine. This machine could slice a loaf of bread automatically. It could also wrap the sliced bread in a package. At first, many bakers were unsure about the invention. Some believed sliced bread would become dry too quickly. Others thought customers might not like it. But when sliced bread finally appeared in stores, people loved it. For the first time, families could buy bread that was already sliced. This made life much easier. People no longer needed to cut each slice by hand. Sandwiches became faster to prepare. Soon, sliced bread became extremely popular. Many households began to buy it every week. The invention was so successful that a new expression appeared in English. People began to say, "The best thing since sliced bread." This phrase meant that something was very new, useful, and exciting. Even today, People still use this expression. Sliced bread became a symbol of modern convenience. It showed how technology could make everyday life easier. 10. The Chorleywood process and superfast bread. In 1961, another major change happened in the bread industry. This change began in the United Kingdom. Scientists and food engineers created a new method called the Chorleywood bread process. People often call it the CBP method. This process used very powerful mixing machines. The machines worked the dough with strong mechanical energy. Because of this, the dough could develop much faster than before. Traditional bread might need several hours to rise. The new process reduced this time to only a few minutes. This method allowed factories to produce huge amounts of bread quickly. The bread was very soft and had a light texture. It could also stay fresh for a longer time. For large supermarkets and bakeries, this process was very useful. It helped them supply bread to millions of customers every day. However, the new method also had disadvantages. The fast process often required extra additives. These ingredients helped improve texture and shelf life. Some people believed this bread was less nutritious than traditional bread. Others felt it lacked the rich flavor of slow fermentation. Even so, the Chorleywood process became widely used. It helped shape the modern bread industry. By the late 20th century, bread had become one of the most industrialized foods in the world. 11. The 21st century. The return of traditional bread. In the 21st century, many people began to think differently about bread again. For many years, factory bread was the most common choice. It was cheap, soft, and easy to buy in supermarkets. However, some people started to miss the taste of traditional bread. They wanted bread with stronger flavor and better quality. Because of this, artisan bread slowly became popular again. Artisan bread is bread made by skilled bakers using traditional methods. It is often made by hand and baked in small bakeries. Many artisan bakers also use natural sourdough instead of commercial yeast. Sourdough uses natural bacteria and wild yeast to make the dough rise. This process takes much longer than modern factory methods. Sometimes the dough rests and ferments for many hours, but this slow process creates deeper flavor and a better texture. Many people also believe sourdough bread is easier to digest. Because of these reasons, sourdough bakeries began to appear in many cities. People were willing to wait longer and pay more for this kind of bread. For them, bread was no longer just a cheap product. It became a craft and a tradition again. 12. The final lesson. Bread and the story of humanity. The history of bread is not only the story of food, it is also the story of human civilization. From ancient hunters to modern cities, bread has always been part of daily life. It helped people settle, build communities, and create societies. Bread also teaches us an important lesson. Modern technology gives us speed and convenience, but sometimes speed makes us forget the value of patience. Traditional bread reminds us that good things often take time. The slow fermentation of dough follows the natural rhythm of life. This simple process connects us to the past. When we break a warm loaf of bread and share it with others, we are doing something very old. People have shared bread with family and friends for thousands of years. Bread is a symbol of community, generosity, and survival. It reminds us that even the simplest food can carry the history of humanity.